and like making the most money on the platform, because vision sometimes, right? Where they say, I just want to be successful, or I just want this one thing. But then you arrive and you have that one thing. And then you look around and you think, all right, well, now I need to add something else, or now I don't have this part of my life, because you weren't really focused on building a balance the whole way through. You were just focusing on one aspect of your life. All right, just professional. And then maybe later it would be, all right, just personal. And, trying to be more thoughtful and intentional about how we're doing that, I think is really relevant to today's, work-life balance. I think it's so awesome and amazing too, that you got a little bit of a leg up rather, on all of us going into the pandemic. You were already kind of, setting up those routines for yourself, because even myself, it's learning that as well, saying, even if we don't have the meetings today, it still is important to get dressed up and to have a routine and to like make yourself accountable. Because I think otherwise it's hard to, consistently show up for yourself every single day. So I also want to point out to everybody that she mentioned in the very beginning, because I know I get this question a lot, is how many proposals she was sending out a day. So in the beginning, it was 3 to 5 every day. So at least 15 a week. Maybe if she couldn't do any on Monday, she would do more on Tuesday, or, but making sure she was getting them all out in that week to like be accountable and have that consistency. Now, you didn't have to do that forever. You don't have to still consistently send out that many proposals, I don't think. But,
Nope.
Doing it in the beginning, keeping that traction, I think is one of the best tips for new freelancers that you can share, for sure.
Yep.
Let's go to our next question here. How did you come to specialize in Kajabi? And did you understand the importance at the time of niching down? I know you mentioned just about like being a virtual assistant, but you really wanted to do something that, you could make some more money, maybe not as many hours, and that led you to Kajabi. So how did that happen?
All right. So with applying for 3 to 5 jobs a day, it led me to working for a ton of different clients every week. So I would have some clients that I would be contracted for 3 to 5 hours a week. I would have some contracts that it would be as needed. So I would never know how much I would be working. So when you add all of those up, I think right now I have like 30 plus contracts open. And I'm not saying that you need to have 30 plus contracts open to fill out a 40-hour work week. I'm not saying that at all. But right now my situation is a little bit different. I have clients that I just work with some parts of the year. I'm basically converted myself into being that safety, basically that toddler safety net, that safety blanket for a lot of my clients, because I am in a tech space. And so I'm working with a lot of people who are not tech savvy. And so just leaving that contract open, knowing that they can contact me whenever they need something, is a huge support for them. And they're very grateful for that opportunity to work with me on that. Yeah. So where did I come to land in Kajabi? It was having that 3 to 5 hour contract where I would be working on some Canva stuff, some scheduling stuff, some here, there, and everywhere for this one client. And I was just getting overwhelmed with all of the tech platforms. And I felt like I needed to know so many different platforms at once. And I would work with, a few hours a day on one platform. Then I would have to transition into another platform or another task list. And so now what I've done is I just knew that I couldn't keep going at that rate. So I decided that I was going to specialize in Kajabi, the one platform. And it took me a while to really buy into one platform. I tested it amongst a lot of different questions that my clients would ask. What are all the features? Is it continuously adding new features? Is there enough jobs that I can apply for on Upwork specifically to that niche? Because I didn't want to niche myself out of being able to find jobs. That's something that you have to kind of consider too. So I did a lot of research through the job posts and things like that. I also looked on the talent side to see how many competitors or competition or other freelancers were doing the exact same thing, because I didn't want to be competing against, a ton of different
huge
people.
Market. Yeah.
No. And so where I'm truly passionate is the strategy and development of courses, of memberships, of marketing funnels, of sales funnels, all of that kind of stuff. And so I could not be an expert that I wanted to be if I had to be an expert in Kajabi, in another online, platform, in another, in all of the different platforms out there, when I truly wanted to be an expert in helping my clients become successful course owners, membership owners, like, and help them develop those content. So that was a huge thing for me. I knew that I couldn't keep at the pace of growth that I wanted to, staying on top of all of the different platform requirements, because technology is constantly changing. Like, just like we're on this new platform for this call,
I know.
Everything's becoming bigger and better. And so to stay on top of those new features, that was a lot to handle. And so I just needed to kind of pull everything back, simplify my life so then I could grow.
I love that so much. There's a couple of really important things I want to pull out there for people. The first one being that you did a lot of research before deciding what you were going to niche down into, not only looking at job postings, but also looking at other talent. And those are both things that I also have done myself, because I think it's really important to know what else is going on out there in the marketplace, to know what like potential clients need and to know how many people are servicing them. So everybody should know how to look for job postings, right? But if nobody has ever searched for other talent before, it's kind of the same way that you search for job postings when you're typing in the top little bar on the Upwork page, except there'll be a little drop down arrow, and you hit the drop down arrow and it will let you choose to search for talent or freelancers rather than for job postings. So I always recommend people do this. Take a look at other people that are doing something similar to what you're doing. You can look at their profile to see what kind of work they have up there. You can look to see what their rates are if you're curious about, is my rate too high or too low? Also, like, comparing yourself to them, like, is my expertise greater than theirs? Therefore, maybe my rate could be more, or is my expertise not as good as theirs? So maybe my rate should be less than theirs. All kinds of things like that is really, really important to, like, just do your own research and find information that's out there. So definitely recommend that to people. And the second piece is just that we're always like upskilling, always teaching yourself new things, and like, staying on top of new technology and new trends. I think it can be really intimidating for some people to want to try to stay up on things, but just like you said, you recognize, I can't stay up on all of it. It's too much. So what can I focus on? What can I stay up on? What can I make sure that I'm like, upskilling myself and like always learning? And for you, that became Kajabi. So I think we just hear it time and time again from really successful freelancers on the platform that niching down really is important. So anything that you guys can do, figuring out what will work for you. It's not going to be the same as what works for Leah or what works for me. It's going to be what works for you. So thinking about, what you like, what you're good at, what you're interested in, like, what are you going to enjoy reading about and like learning about and teaching yourself about it? Because if you hate it, it's going to be much more difficult to, want to read those articles or watch the YouTube videos or, learn from others in your industry. So I think niching down and doing your research on the platform by both looking at job postings and looking at other talent are really, really important if you're in that point of your business in which you still feel like you can, further specialize. So important. And I just, so many nuggets of wisdom here, Leah.
Just one more like a little nugget. If it's those tasks that you're procrastinating, that's what you're not meant to do. Like, if you're finding yourself constantly procrastinating, and that's where I was at. Like, I was pushing off a few tasks every single week to like dreading it. Friday mornings, that's when I would have to do it because I had to have it done that week. And I was like, I just need to like gracefully exit out of this project, but I didn't exit out of that project until I found something else to replace it. So,
Absolutely.
Just kind of keep that in mind too. And one more point that I want to make sure people understand is like, you are an independent contractor on Upwork, you're independent talent. Make sure that you are owning yourself. Don't copy and paste other people's profiles. I have, because I will coach people to get started, and people have literally copied and pasted parts of my profile, and Upwork will catch you. Like, and I have no problem saying like, this is mine. Like, they can see, like, I have a lot of back documentation of like when that went into my profile, all those different things. And you have to own yourself too. So just make sure that you're really like, everyone's individual. So, use it for research, but make sure that you're owning yourself too.
That's a very good point. I love that. And thank you for calling it out. I think it's definitely important. Do it for research, but make your own content. And like, really, with all these calls and all this information, like, no one person or two people rather are going to be the same, or like what's going to work for one person won't be what works for the next person. That goes with rates, that goes with niching down, that goes with what you put on your profile. Really, everything is going to be different. So don't think that you can look at anybody else's, success and say, I'm just going to do exactly what they did, because that's not going to be success for you. That was like their path to success. You have to find your own path to success. So
Exactly.
definitely
Yep.
important. And I love
Yep.
that. Okay, I love this question as well. So also important on today's topic, just about, women and freelancing, is how do you overcome negative connotations of the word freelancer? Like, how do you explain to others what you do? Because I'm sure a lot of us on this call have experienced that when people say, oh, what do you do? And you kind of, oh, you might stumble for a second, or you might not have like a complete explanation that's easy and
Yeah.
quick to give to people. So how do you handle that?
Yeah. I'm going to take it a little bit different, and then I'll turn it around this way. But it is my favorite thing to listen to how my parents, who are like in their early 60s, explain what I do to people. Like, it is the most comical thing. So I've like coached them for years because I've been doing this. They're just like, oh, she does something online. She does a great job.
That's funny.
They've just dumbed it down to that. And I'm like, okay, fine, that works. But so no one truly in my outside of my laptop, they see me as the person who's working on her laptop in the car while she's waiting in the pickup line for her kids. They see me as the person sitting in the hockey rink working on my laptop before games, knowing that I'm optimizing my time, and they just don't really understand it. And that's like, I've just had to come and be okay with that, because as I've tried explaining it over the years of like, I'm a freelancer, it does definitely have some negative connotations wrapped around it. It's almost like, oh, she's not good enough, she can't get a full-time job, or why would you do that when there's so many, so many places that are hiring right now. And people who are in that 9 to 5 job, or in that typical work environment where they clock in, they clock out, they don't understand. And so they don't need to understand. Like, that's kind of just like my mindset. I've just drawn a boundary in it. They don't need to understand. They need to understand that I am doing what works for me. They need to understand what's working for my family. And they need to understand that I'm setting myself up for retirement probably several years before that. And that's how I've become okay with that. How I explain it to people is because I have always strived to be an expert in something that I'm working on. I will now say I specialize in an online business platform, and I'm an expert strategist, or something like along those lines, putting those higher authority words into my description. I leave out the word freelance completely at this point, but a doctor is going to pull their title out. Anyone who has those higher level titles, they're going to use that when they're describing what they do. So us as freelancers, like, if you're claiming that you're an expert in something, as you submit those proposals and as you build out your portfolio, make sure that you're doing that in everyday conversation. Like, you deserve the credit that you're doing behind the scenes too.
I love that. And I like that you explain, or also, I guess, clarify that they don't need to understand, because I think that's the hard part too, is not only explaining to people what you do, but then they don't understand why you do it, right? That's like the inevitable second question. So I think, removing that baggage from our side and saying, we understand why we do it. We know that we're building the lives of our dreams, and, managing our time well, and working on projects that we really care about, working with only clients that we really love to work with. So there's a million reasons why we do it. So we know those reasons, but it's not our responsibility to make other people understand those reasons. And I also love that you just kind of leave out the word freelancer in general. Like, if somebody has a part-time job at, McDonald's, they don't say, I work part-time at McDonald's. They would say, I work at McDonald's. So it's kind of the same thing with freelancing. And because oftentimes freelancing is full-time, or even more than full-time. I think sometimes it has like the connotation as well as not being full-time. Like, if you're freelancing, you must just be doing it on the side. You must not be doing it like, as your full job. So if you just leave that out, then, you don't even leave room for that thought as well, which I think is a really great way to start it as well, because it's not our responsibility to tell them how many hours we're working. And it's not our responsibility to tell them all the reasons in which we want to do it. Just like you said, like, it works for you, it works for your family. And I think that so many people, can identify with that, and like feeling like that's the reasons they came here, is to make it fit with their life and to fit with their family. So we all know that. We don't have to explain it to everybody else. And I think it's becoming a lot more, acceptable and understandable. I'm sure it was much more difficult for you in 2018, pre-pandemic. So I think there is a lot of like growing acceptability around the word. But still, we're all in like the forefront of it, I feel like, and, paving the way for people behind us, people who have not even left their 9 to 5s yet, right, to freelance. Like, all of us out here, we're the pioneers blazing the trail to make it
Mhm.
acceptable. And I love it. And I love how also you said that like you have many clients that just call you whenever they need assistance. And I think of that kind of as like a pinch hitter, like your best player that you need in a crunch time. You know, you might not have them on your roster all the time. You might not be paying them a full-time salary, but knowing that you're there, like in moments of their need, gives them so much like comfort and, you know, reliability that they're always going to want to come back to you for that, which also puts you in a really good position to have long-term clients that, you know, you can just continue to support rather than going out and constantly trying to find new clients, you know?
Mhm.
Okay, so I did have one more question on here for you, Leah, just talking about like other difference makers in your career as a freelancer. So totally welcome to share anything that you would like that you feel like was totally a difference maker. I do want to try to
Yep.
take at least one or two questions from the audience though. So I will
Okay.
go ahead and give you the floor to share any difference makers while I pull out a question or two, and then we can go
Okay.
from there.
Sounds good. I would definitely say taking back the control when I'm starting to have interviews with clients. So it has put me out of the running for some jobs once I said, this is what it looks like to work with me. And again, going back to knowing that I work with a lot of different clients at one time, I can't be down so many different paths that everyone has different expectations of me. I've been doing this long enough. I know that my path works. And so since I've taken back that control, it's done a couple things. It's built a huge amount of trust with me, with clients from the very beginning, that they know that they can put a lot of trust in me. They don't have to set up the processes. I already have that built. And it does for me on the other side. I know exactly what my work week looks like or what this project looks like. And I don't have as many unknowns or unexpected things that happen. And just the second thing that's been a huge thing for me, and it's taken some time to really develop. I'm deep down, I'm definitely a people pleaser. And so I would say yes to a lot of different things. But when I started exercising that no muscle, that's really hard, and putting those boundaries in place, I definitely have a lot more like satisfaction in life personally and professionally. I'm not on any PTAs anymore. I'm not in any organization groups for my kids anymore. I will be the biggest supporter, the biggest donor, like that kind of stuff. The day of an event, I will be there, rain, shine, like to help out. But the planning stuff, I know I'm good at it. I'm just not doing it anymore. It just takes too much of my time, and just learning how to set those boundaries to keep me rooted on the path of where I'm headed has been a tremendous like change and shift in my life, personally and professionally. So
I love that so much. Again, so applicable to what we're talking about today. Exercising your no muscle, not always saying yes. I know I'm afflicted by it as well. I'm sure many of us on this call are. So not that you have to say no to everything, but learning to say no to some things and learning to prioritize, you know, what is most important to you, what's going to most benefit you and your family is really, really important. And also, I love that you say about setting your expectations up front with your clients about what it's like to work with you. I think as women, we can be, you know, not as open with, you know, setting expectations, with being firm. We don't want to be, you know, perceived as being too pushy or whatnot. But ultimately, what will happen if you don't do that is you might end up in an agreement with a client that, you know, they're not happy with what's, you know, the work balance or what you're producing, or you might not be happy with them as a client either. So I think even though you might have like lost clients, quote unquote, by telling them what it's like to work with you, I think ultimately it's just showing that that wasn't a good match for both of you to begin with. So it's best to just like avoid that headache. Don't deal with the bad reviews potentially on either side, right? That you could write for them or vice versa. And know that, all right, we just found this out at the perfect stage of the process that maybe it's not best for us to work together. And you find all the clients that are best for you to work with. So I think that's really important for everybody. Exercising those no muscles, talking about what like your expectations are upfront, both from the client and what they can expect from you, are going to go a really, really long way in making your like client relationships happy and hopefully long lasting. So I do have one or a couple questions, a lot of questions, but I'm going to take one here that I found. For some reason, it won't show me who wrote it, but let me see. New platforms, guys. Sorry, I'll figure it out. I promise. But it says, how do you market yourself on your profile when you have widely differing skills that might not seem related? some things like graphic design, writing, and Excel. So I don't know that this is super, I mean, you came from the administrative assistant side, so you're a wide breadth, but what would your suggestion be?
Yeah, so I would figure out a way to tie that all together and figure out like, okay, so there's different ways that you can have different profiles. So make sure that you're applying for jobs, like set up different profiles. Some of the basic, like the soft skills are going to be predominant on all of your profiles, like truly like who you are needs to be predominant on each of those profiles. But, and I might be using the terminology different or wrong, but
no, it is. It's profiles. They're called specialized profiles. So to be clear, it's not like separate Upwork accounts. Like it's all your same account, like under your same name, under your same email, because you can't have like separate accounts, but you can have specialized profiles, which is true. Yeah.
So I would have those different specialized profiles, but then I would also have a general profile. So it's just like if you're looking for like a project manager needs to have some, could be an asset if you have some graphic design skill. It's going to be an asset if you can organize things in Excel. And what was the other thing that they were asking?
It was just about like, putting different skills onto your profile.
So that to me would be a great project manager. So like looking for those general project managing jobs, because those are all skills that if someone was hiring a project manager, you don't need to be an expert in everything, but you need to have a little bit of knowledge or the willingness to learn to be a solid project manager, because then you're able to find experts if you need to collaborate.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Leah. I really appreciate you joining us today. This was so insightful and empowering. And I think that everybody has really enjoyed learning from you on today's call. So now we're going to move to our second session to do our networking breakouts, where you guys are all going to be able to join breakouts and be able to connect with each other, share your best tips and tricks and practices. So we are going to leave this session, and on your attendee hub, you should be able to join your networking session. So I will end this session here, and I will see you guys momentarily over in our second session for networking breakouts. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for your time.